आचार्य गुरुदेव तुलसी के चरणों में भी वंदना. My reverence to Acharya, His Holiness Acharya Tulsi. He composed this beautiful composition Adhyatma Padavali, and we were discussing in Adhyatma Padavali different concepts which he's piled up together. This is a journey of spirituality, and when we talk about spirituality, we just did a simple meditation. That was Soham, right? So when we ask ourselves your identity, we generally identify ourselves with our names. Or if you are comparing yourself, you could compare yourself with other beings. So we are human beings and others are some other beings. But when trying to do Soham, what were we trying to identify ourselves as? We said So Aham, that I am. Who is that? The Siddha. So Siddha is actually a pure state of soul. A soul without any kind of bondage. So how many kinds of bondage do we carry?
Eight.
Generally, we think that we have 8 types of karmas, which is a big bondage in our life. But we could look into the same question with a different perspective. Literally, you're bound by the society, you're bound by the nation, you're bound by your family, you're bound by your friends. These are all external boundaries, external bondages. But if we go even why all these exist around us, why can't you say no, they don't exist? Why you cannot deny them? Because there's another bondage which is much more stronger, and that is the bond of the body. We live as a being in this body, and the body is our residence. So anywhere you travel, anywhere you sit, who you are? You're the person sitting here. So there is one moment in meditation we are trying to say that I am that Siddha, but now we identify ourselves as sitting here with our senses connecting to everything around. So that connection everything around, the bondage which exists everything around is because of this body. So here Acharya Tulsi, as he takes us to this journey of spirituality, in our previous session we mentioned that Chaitanyaman hai Chaitanya Triroop. स्थूल सूक्ष्म अति सूक्ष्म ज्यों ऊर्जा उष्मा धूप. So he brings our attention to this fact that though we are Chaitanya, we have these 3 energies, sthul, sukshma and ati sukshma. And that was, which are the 3 bodies we carry? The gross body, the subtle body and the subtlest body. So when he says sthul body, he doesn't stop there. He doesn't say that this is your bigger bondage. He says there is something more to that. That is your bioelectric body, which is subtler than the gross body. Why are we alive now? The moment our vital energy gets exhausted, that is death. So we talk about prana. In Jainism, how many kinds of prana? 10 kinds of prana is there. What, anyone are familiar with this prana concept? So there is 5 senses which makes 5 prana, and then there is breathing, manobal prana, vachanbal prana, kayabal prana, swasvachwas prana and ayushya prana. We think the moment our breath stops, that is death. But that is not the case. There are people who might have who could hold their breath, not breathe, but still survive. There are cases where they kept a person in a box without any oxygen or any air flow through it, and after a few days or some long time, when they removed him, he still was able to survive. There are people who actually, there are cases where people, if they fall into the ocean, right? And if you know the technique of holding their breath, You might not know to swim, but if you know how to hold your breath, there are chances of survival. So, breath is a force which gives us energy, true. It gives us the present moment, true. But then, the ultimate prana is Ayushya prana. So, this prana energy, in a way, is related to our subtle body, which is Tejas body, the bioelectric body. If our bioelectric body is strong enough, you have good digestive system. But if it is weak, your digestive system is weak. And we are familiar with pranayam, right? What is pranayam? So I'm using the word pran and then I'm using the word pranayam. Pran is vital energy, I said. Ayam means exercising it. So exercising your vital energy is pranayam. So here Acharya Tulsi is trying to say that this subtle body, in a way, if you look at our life, we generally think that the problematic force is the karma energy, right? And the living entity is this physical body, right? I mean, we usually either think into extremes. Extreme, and here is the physical identity which we have now. The other extreme is the karmic force. But in between these two, this vital energy, the prana energy or the tejas body is, though it is not the doer. Because who is the culprit? We'll talk about that. Who is the culprit, right? Because it's a big question. When we go through a problem, who is the culprit? Where did the problem come from? Usually it is from the other. It cannot be from me, right? So the culprit is, who is the culprit is a big question. We'll talk about that. But this mediator between these two forces, the gross body and the subtlest body, the karma body, is the tejas body. It is vitality, it is force, it is the power to sustain. As long as it exists, we are living. It exhausts, we are dead. But then who defines its exhaustion and life? Who defines it? The karma body. So though it is the energy force, it is something like this, right? There was a court case and men were asked that, do you go by your wife's words or you just go by your independent decisions? And then like almost all except one said that yes, we all go by what our my wife says. It might be different in this world. I don't know. But one of them, when he said that no, I go by my own thinking and decision, after that the judge asked him, who asked you to answer this question like this? And he said, it was my wife. So here we see that there is this force, but again the force, the power of the force, its functionality is in a way regulated by, it's something like, financial thing. The finance, you do business, money is there. Money is just a mediator to buy and sell things, right? The pleasure you have, the joy you have, how much money you have, who decides that? It's you and your business. So business is like karma and you are the doer of that karma, and money is just a mediator who does the transactions for you. So the vital energy gives us life, but it is mere mediator between the external and the internal. And then Acharya is trying to say Ati Sukshma. Why Ati Sukshma? Is karma subtle or it is gross? It is invisible, but it is the most visible, right? Everything around us, we say karma play. So it is though the most invisible, it is visible because its functionality is everywhere around us. So he brings these three bodies and then he talks about Adhyavasaya. When he mentions these three bodies and then jumps into Adhyavasaya, what is Adhyavasaya? So though we know that these three bodies are there, these three faculties or forces exist, there is something about it which creates a problem. And what is that? It's interaction. How they interact with each other, and even if there is a give and take between them, how the receiver receives it is even more crucial about it. For example, when we have this financial shift in India, how people receive it is a big component. There are people who said, yes, we are going through a loss, but they think that it's all for good, future good. It's good for the nation. So you could see that one perspective is that. The other perspective is, no, he is actually a big, like all kinds of abusive words towards Modi and stuff. So the interaction between these three bodies, how they interact, and most important, how the receiver receives the interaction is crucial. So when Acharya goes for the next step, which is Adhyavasaya.
What is Adhyavasaya?
That is what Acharya Tulsi is trying to define. Karmana sanyutta chetana banti adhyavasay प्राणी मात्र में प्राप्त है सूक्ष्म स्पंदन प्राय. So he says that the consciousness, when it interacts with this karmic body, is Adhyavasaya. It's very simple. Water, you have water and you add some salt to it or sugar to it. Whatever ingredient you added, it becomes a part of the water. And it changes the taste of the water. When you see the water, do you know the taste of it? Actually, no. It's not visible to your senses, but it is still there. So that is Adhyavasaya. Adhyavasaya is a subtle state of consciousness which exists within us due to the interaction of the karmic energy. So the influence of the karmic energy which has on the soul without its expression at the gross level, I mean the impact at the subtle level, the expression at the subtle level, which is not visible outside, is Adhyavasaya. And when he has said this, he jumps quickly to the next one. Why jumping to the next one is important is, I said that it is not visible. Adhyavasaya is a state where you cannot define in the external world, or you cannot, it's very subtle state of soul. So when it is very subtle, it's hard to, so for example, when what we are thinking, is that Adhyavasaya? No. The emotions we carry, is that Adhyavasaya? No. So whatever I'm feeling inside, is that Adhyavasaya? No. It is even subtler than that. And why I say this is what Acharya is bringing up. Acharya Tulsi says, because remember, we are talking about three bodies, right? So all three bodies interaction together defines who we are. So just talking about one body, when we talk about the soul and karmic energy interaction. And now he says, Acharya is saying, Tejas sanyata chetana Leshya vividha swabhav उसके स्पंदन चक्र से जुड़ा हुआ है भाव. You are familiar with the word Leshya? What is Leshya? Leshya, he is saying aura. But there is a big difference between aura and Leshya. I'll tell you why. And any other way of defining Leshya? So Leshya means Rashmi. It's rays. Rays of the soul. When we are trying to talk about soul, soul is a non-tangible entity. You cannot see, you cannot taste, you cannot feel it. It is non-sensual reality. Karmic energy is a subtle energy which is very subtle. It is interacting with the soul. Now these two interaction, when it adds up with this light energy, the bioelectric energy, the Tejas body, the vital energy, it is a combination of all three produces Leshya. Leshya is again little, it is subtle, but it is little gross than Karman body, the Adhyavasaya. Now, why do you think, and we are constantly saying Karman body is more subtle than the Tejas body? One of the theory is that everything what is matter, right? Any matter you see, it is made up of how many particles? Infinite atomic particles. So constantly, for now, as you're taking your breath in, how many atomic particles you're taking in? Infinite. So basically, our life now is interacting with anything which is tangible, visible, is a bunch of infinite particles. The gross body is made up of infinite particles. Perfect. The Tejas body is made up of infinite particles. Perfect. The karmic body is made up of infinite particles. So if everything is made up of infinite, how is it different then? The difference is the gross body is made up of sthul, which means like the bonding between the atomic particles of this gross body is more gross in a way. It's more. It's not that subtle. It's not that compact or not that dense in a way. Yes, dense is the right word. But when we look into the Tejas and the karmic particles and their bodies, they have strong concentrated particles basically. I mean, strong concentrated molecules. And furthermore, the karmic body has only 4 kind of touch, whereas the gross body and the Tejas body have 8 kind of touch. What is this 8 kind of touch and 4 kind of touch? Are you familiar with? Every matter has touch, right? Taste, smell. So when everyone has it, the subtle particles, like the karmic particles, has only 4 kind of touch. Now again, there are different theories about which of the 4, but one of the general theory is there are Sheet, Ushna, Snigdha, Ruksh, Laghu, Guru, Mridu, Karkash. So these are the 8 kind of touch. Sheet means cold. Ushna means opposite, hot. Sheet, Ushna, Snigdha, Ruksh. Snigdha is soft, like yeah, and Ruksh is rough. So every matter has these 4, and then Laghu, Guru, heavy and light. Laghu, Guru, and Sheet, Ushna, Snigdha, Rukshi, Laghu, Guru, Mridu, Karkash. Mridu is again like, like ghee. It's Mridu, like, yeah.
Viscous.
Yeah, viscous. And Karkash is, it's I mean, different from rough, but it is opposite of viscous basically. Non-viscous reality. So every matter will have any of these touch. But the ones which we are interacting now at the gross level, the physical body, it has all the 8 touch. Karmic body has only 4 kinds of touch. And that is the reason it is beyond experimentation. Why beyond experimentation? Because when we look into a dialogue which we have in Rai Pasenia, there's a beautiful text where King Pradeshi and Keshi Swami, like Parsh Bhagwan's disciple Keshi Swami, and Pradeshi was a king. Now there is a dialogue between these two, and this dialogue is kind of a discussion between material and the spiritual world. King Pradeshi is constantly asking, if you say that there is a soul, how do I prove it? Because he did experiments. He took a person who was a thief, and when he was about to be punished, what he did is he weighed him in a living state, and he weighed him after death, and he didn't found any change of weight. Now there are experiments in science today where they do prove that there is a change of weight, which is very subtle. I'll talk about that. But here he says there is no change of weight. So if there was something living in this body and has left, why didn't the weight change? Why didn't the weight change? The soul is weightless. And what about the karmic body? According to this theory, it is weightless. So here when Achashi is saying that the subtlest body, he says that every soul, he says prani matra mein prapta hai sukshma spandan pray. Acharya Tulsi is saying every soul has this sensation, the vibration of the karmic energy, which every soul has Adhyavasaya. But when we talk about the next one, तेजस संयुक्त चेतना लेशा विविध स्वभाव उसके स्पंदन चक्र से जुड़ा हुआ है भाव. So when we talk about bhav, does these animals have bhav? For example, does a plant have bhav? Yes, they do have it, but it is more subtle. Their expression in the external world is subtler than we could do it. So how that difference exists is because of the gross body which they carry. If the gross body has 5 senses and a developed mind, the expression of vital energy and the karmic energy would be at a different level. But since they don't have this expression area, for example, if someone have a party at home, depending on the kind of home you have, the party would be, right? Some people would have all different kinds of gadgets at home, which means they can have games in the party and drinks in the party or dance in the party, whatever. But some would not have everything around that and might pick few of those to have the party, right? So here, depending on the kind of residential home you have, the expression of these subtle energies, subtle bodies is possible. So though they are subtle, they are expressing at the outer level. Though the karmic body is only made up of 4 sparsh, which is very subtle, it has the power of expression, and that expression depends on the kind of gross body we have. Now again the question turns back, who defines the gross body? It is all cycle, right? When we talked about the subtle vital energy, vital body, who defines its power? The karmic body. Who defines the gross body? Kaisa sharir hai? Based on my karma. So now my question for you is, we have 4 entities here. Achashi has used 4 different words. Atma, which is Chetana, Sthul, Sukshma and Ati Sukshma. 3 kinds of bodies. Who is the culprit? Ati Sukshma. The culprit cannot be Chandni. Any other answer to this?
Chetna.
Chetna. So Achashi in the previous one of this shlok he says, मैं हूँ मैं है भाव पर जब जाता है ध्यान संभव बनती है तभी आत्मा की पहचान. The moment I go to this mode of I exist rather than I am, because the moment I use the word I am, the phrase I am will go to I am Samaniji Unnata Pragya, I am delivering lecture here, I am doing my PhD. So there is many tags which come with that I am. But the moment he says मैं हूँ, मैं है, the moment who and hai is a big difference, right? So the moment I go to the mode of existence, that I exist, then the body exists, the vital body exists, the karmic body exists, and whatever is happening, but I only exist. That mode of existence, the feeling that I am present here and I'm not a slave of the bodies, whatever is happening, you're not kind of giving up to it, that means you're surviving with your identity. But the moment you succumb to these forces, the culprit is ultimately, in a way, if we go by, there are different ways to look at it. The culprit is the soul in a way. The pure soul is never the culprit. It is only the polluted soul which is the culprit, which means the pollution comes from the karma. And why the karma exists? It's because of the polluted soul. So the polluted soul, independent karma, how many independent karmas are lying around you? even the place where we are seated, there is atomic particles filled in this room. There is karmic particles filled in this room. The same place where I sit, there is these karmic particles which is hanging in the air. It's not a part of me. And the same space where I sit, I exist. I am there with the karmic body attached to me. So you see that though there is this matter in the same space, some matter is just there, some matter is a part of me interacting with me as karma. Big difference. How can that big difference exist? It's the same space. But some particles, nothing is happening to me from them, or it's no interaction. But some particles in the same space, because there is a bonding, there is I am, there is an interaction. So here, this interaction produces this Leshya. At the subtle level, it is Adhyavasaya. You cannot really make a big contribution to it because Adhyavasaya is very subtle to reach to. But for Leshya, there is a beautiful story. I mean, there is a concept of Leshya being described in Uttradhyan and other texts as well. And the good story which goes this way, I think you've heard many times before, that there are 6 people, 6 kids, take it for 6 kids who had gone for a picnic. They were returning back, they were hungry. And when they were hungry, they thought they didn't have any kind of, it was probably a vacation day or whatever you think. And they found a tree full of fruits. So the first child responded seeing this fruit tree. What was the response? Let me cut the whole tree and we'll have all the fruits for us. The second child comes up and says, wait, there is a better way. We can just cut the big branches so we are not killing the tree and still have everything. The third says, there's another better way. What is it? Just cut the small branches and you still have everything you need. What is the next response? Pick the bunch of fruits, and then the 5th person would say, just pick the ripe fruits, and the last child is saying, why do you want to touch the tree? It's just down there. Now this is Leshya. Depending on the kind of Adhyavasaya we had, there's a whole range of expression outside us. The need was the same. Everyone is hungry. The situation outside, or inside the bodies for that matter here, is similar. The family goes through a tough situation, for example. It's the same tough situation, but each one of us have very different emotional expression to it. One is too hyper, second is too concerned and fearful, the third is very bold and kind of the mode of action, the fourth has nothing to do with it. Now the first person is worried not just of the problem in the house, but why this fourth person is not worried, right? And the fourth person is thinking, there is a problem, I know, why is this person worried about it? So what are we trying to do? It's not just the problem which is a problem, but how each one of us respond around us is another problem. You see our mind and emotion? So it tries to complicate the situation, and it is because of our Leshya. How we respond, what is the kind of shade of emotion? We usually say that there's these 6, right? In these 6, the first 3 is inauspicious. And the rest 3 is auspicious. Now when these 6 has such a wide range of differences, the 6 could actually be infinite. Why? The difference between the first person and the fourth person or the 6th person could be infinite times more or infinite times less. 2 people are doing the same samayik. The degree to which one goes into it and practices it could be infinite times more or infinite times less. So there is a beautiful concept of Chaktanvadiya, which means how something could be infinite times more or infinite or innumerable times more or numerable times more, or it's a beautiful concept which shows how diverse we are. And it's not just the other, not comparing with the other, even with ourselves. Our state of mind now could be very different than when we would have it by the end of the day or which we had it yesterday night. How was yesterday night and how is your today now? There's a beautiful historical incident in Uttarakhand. I think it's about Nami Rajarshi. He becomes an ascetic after giving his kingship, and when he becomes a king, an ascetic, he gets to know that there is someone who's attacked his kingdom and his child, who was he was young enough, so he didn't think that he would be kind of ready for taking care of the kingdom and stuff. So the moment he receives the news that the enemy have attacked his kingdom or his child's kingdom, there's a whole rage of emotion coming up. He's boiling up inside and he thinks, oh, I'm going to go and fight them and I'm going to kill them. And the whole story of war, killing every being, is not there in the outer world. It's there within us. The Kurukshetra is where? Where did Kurukshetra actually take place? So here, when this thing is going on, Gautam Swami asked Bhagwan Mahavir, what would happen if he die now? Bhagwan says he's going to go to first hell. He says, after like few seconds, he says, what now? We are all excited about what next. So he says, what's going to happen next to him? We're not excited about what's going to happen next to me. Right? What is mine? And Bhagwan says he's going to go to second hell. Then Bhagwan says, third hell. Bhagwan is constantly pushing him to, which is the last hell? No eighth hell? Thank God, it's no eighth hell, right? So Bhagwan says he's going to go to seventh hell. Now the moment Bhagwan says seventh hell, and after that, and Gautam Swami asks the question again, what happens to the story? What happens to Nami Rajarshi? There is a shift. So here, the moment he goes to the climax of his emotion, he suddenly thinks, what am I doing? Am I the king? Is the kingdom mine? Is there anything which I'm losing? I've already given up everything. If you have already given up everything, if you had a bank account, if you had this currency of $1 million and you had already given it off as a charity, and now what happens to that charity? Is that your business? Is this the way usually it happens? Though the person has given off the amount, the person is still thinking, what is going on? What is going on? What is going on, right? So the detachment, if you have really given up something, detached from your inside. He thinks, I've become a sadhu. I've detached. I've really given up. Why am I bothered? What's going on? And there's a shift of emotions. The shift from seventh hell comes back to first hell. It doesn't stop there. It goes to Kevalya. The same hour within Antar Muhurt, he's in the seventh hell. He is on the topmost ladder, 13th Gunasthan, Kevalya. This is Leshya, where we see that there are different shades of emotion. There is this Mohaniya karma, which gets too hyper, too activated, and the moment the soul forgets that I am not this emotion, it gets succumbed to it, it loses the battle. Though there is actually not a fight in a way, right? Because if you're not refuting the other, is there a battle? If you give up, is there a battle? So if you don't fight with your Mohaniya karma, there is no war. But without having a war, you are the loser here. And here, when we go to the Leshya, the last Leshya, what happens? You're in the pure state. You might fight, but in a way, it is non-fighting is fighting. Why? What kind of war goes within us? The battle is not fighting with awareness, which means though there is a situation, though I know that there is someone going and killing someone, I don't respond to it. That non-response, that non-action, the non-reaction is my mode of war. Right? So there are two ways you can fight. Fight by not responding, not taking that negative energy on you. For example, there is big thing which has happened. The weather conditions which has changed, you don't like it. The family situation which has changed, you don't like it. Family plans have changed, you don't like. There are different kinds of components come around us as instigator, and then the Mohani karma is ready to take everything and respond in a hyper way. But then if the soul is aware and chooses the mode of non-reaction, there is the winning of the war. So here we have the shades of emotions. We have to decide which shade of emotion am I in the current moment. In the story, I use the word there is a better way, right? And I use it with a purpose. Can we ask ourselves in any situation that can I choose a better way of saying this? Can I choose a better way of doing it? Can I choose a better way of thinking? Can I choose a better way of interaction? A better way which would be more peaceful for me. So it's most important that we deal with ourselves at this stage where we choose our how. Acheshri is using two words here, swabhav and bhav. So there are three words in a way, Adhyavasaya, bhav and swabhav. So basically the external, like for example, when we see a person doing something in a certain pattern, we say it is his swabhav. That is his nature. That is the way he is going to respond. I knew it. So there is an external expression of one's own bhav. So bhav is subtle, like the emotional state which we have is our bhav. And the subtlest is Adhyavasaya. So Adhyavasaya is beyond our apprehension in a way. Bhav, you can understand it. But can you control this bhav and not let it go into your external swabhav?
So what do you call, define in English, Adhyavasaya? What is the phrase or a word?
Raji, if I saying this no.
Have we tried not to have the soul tainted at all? Is that the word? Not to
No,
get tainted at all.
it is tainted. Adhyavasaya is a state of tainted state of soul. It is an intrinsic state. There is basically it's hard to define it. It's just kind of you can present it in a phrase rather than just one word, and it simply means the interaction of the soul and the karma. The impact of the soul and the karmic energy on the soul is Adhyavasaya. So, for example, when these two interact, I mentioned the glass and the salt or this thing added to it, right? So it is there, but when do you know that it is salty or sweet? When you drink it. So its external expression is in the form of yoga, like you do certain things. And how does that come about? By means of this physical gross body and the vital energy which we use to do certain actions. So the impact of karmic energy at the subtle level of the soul is just like the water with salt or sugar in it. It's though you would see the water as water, it is not the actual water, it is salty or sweet. You don't know about it unless you use the tools of the physical body, action, vital energy to really taste and know about it. So the it is the journey where it starts. Usually there is an example, or another example given is the bulb is there and it has this light coming, but if you cover the bulb with any kind of different colored paper or cellophane, if it is green cellophane, the color would come as green. If it is blue, it is blue color coming to us. What is the actual color? The color of the light is just the light color, right? But how the change of color is there in the room, it's because of the layers around the bulb. Similarly, these are layers around the soul, which has an impact on the soul. And at the gross level, we see it's more gross is the Leshya with the different shades of emotion. And then we have this your action, which is even more gross. And
can you break the word Adhyavasaya? How would you break it?
Adhyavasaya, actually, Adhi means nikat, right? And that which is staying close by to the soul, basically, which resides closer to the soul. The most closest interaction between the soul and karma is Adhyavasaya, most subtlest one. More, like for example, if we look into this, by very different example is, if there is a decision going on in the president's room, what the negotiation or the discussion goes between the president and his next next person, vice president, for example. I don't know how the positions are, but the intrinsic internal discussion which goes between the president and the vice president is the karma and the soul interaction. And then when it comes out of the office as a rule or a law or an order or something, then you have the more tangible world around us. So it's the most subtlest thing which is going between these two energies, basically. I hope this is clear, right? So and in Acheshi's definition, Acharya Tulsi he puts it in the most simplest way: karmana sanyuta chetana. The soul with the karma is Adhyavasaya. In simple language, I mean the interaction of the soul and karma is Adhyavasaya. And so any questions just around this? We are talking about the Leshya. We talked about the soul, the Adhyavasaya and the Leshya, and then we have this bhav and swabhav. So any questions if you have around this? Yes.
So how does intellect play with all this?
Okay. So when we're talking about intellect, we go to the karma again. So there are 8 types of karma, right? Now, these karmic energies, though they have specific roles to play, they do have, for example, if there's a team in an organization, and there is a food committee and there is another kind of media committee and all different committees, and each one has a specific role to play, but they interact with each other to kind of make the best decisions and help each other and stuff. Similarly here, the Jnanavani karma is the karma of related to knowledge. The soul has this power of knowing, but then the Jnanavani karma actually blocks it. So the lesser the blockage, the more the power of knowledge could be. Now again, intellect is just one aspect of knowledge, because there are different ways of looking into knowledge, right? Some people are very logical in their knowing, some people are very rational in their knowing, some people have kind of Utpattiki Buddhi. Utpattiki Buddhi means like instant knowing, like, without even going into the details, they know the story ahead of time. Some people have the power of, if I just read the phrase, you would know the whole of it, and some would know the whole philosophy of it, some would know whole etymological meaning of it. So our ability to know has grown in in different fields depending on how we have nurtured, trained ourselves. Some are like we had a workshop in Jain Vishwakarma University in India. It was on Shastra Varta Samuchay. And there were different scholars who came up with different sessions on different chapters of it. And each scholar was a highly intellectual person, right? But then each of them had their own beauty of the way they presented it. So there was the first scholar, he didn't talk anything about the like the verses in the text. He picked few words and he went into beautiful historical kind of quotations and scholars. He mentioned different people to try to bring the significance of those composition itself. There was another person who went into the philosophical details of it. There was third scholar who talked about it in a very logic and through the language of logic basically. And there was fourth who was an expert of language and he was discussing in the context of language. You see, so the ability of knowing has different areas which we try to grow. But the so the expression of the intellect could be in different aspects. So you could be intellectually great, smart in some aspect, but the other person could be in a very different aspect of or different field. Like some are great in mathematics and some are great in history or stuff like that. So there are these expertise of knowing which we have grown in different fields. But ultimately it is the Jnana Varnaya Karma. But as I mentioned, it's not just the Jnana Varnaya Karma. A person is emotionally very disturbed. Would he be able to grasp the message in the same manner? Suppose you have come with after having a fight with someone here in the lecture, half of the lecture would be gone off the head. So now, though it was your disturbed mind, but what did you end up saying? It was too tough to understand. Why was it too tough? Probably it was just your emotional thing. Yes, Tanishbhai.
So does the surroundings affect our Leshya? For example, at the moment we are all sitting here in this surrounding. So are we having the same type of Leshya? For example, Shukla Leshya.
Okay, that is a very nice question. Hina initially said that Leshya is aura, and I said it is not. Why I said it is not is the expression of the Leshya at the external field is aura in a way. So the color shield which produces and which expands outside our body is the aura, which is actually a manifestation of the Leshya, but it's still different. Leshya is a state which is produced inside and its expression outside is aura. Now, when you ask this question, the answer is yes and no. Whether we have an exchange of Leshya, yes and no, the reason is internally it is your Mohaniya Karma, your emotions, your mind which has a big impact on your state of being. But the aura which we all carry, we were meditating, right? So probably you were restless or you were tired. But because of the intense aura energy produced by around us, people around us, we were able to go into much better into that. Like for example, when we meet, there are people who would come to Acharya Tulsi with different kinds of complaints. But the moment they entered the room, they would not say a word to him. His aura was so strong that he would calm down the person. So the ability to have the impact of our aura on the other or getting influenced by the other's aura, it again depends on us. If our aura is weak enough, if we are fine, we have a very positive energy, but you go around with someone and you bring in that negative energy. Why? We had a weaker aura and that energy actually had an influence on us. So there is an exchange of energy, but then ultimately the inner state makes a big difference. So if the inner state is very strong, very peaceful, very intense, then the impact is less. In both the cases, there could be a person who is spiritually very high and has no impact or people around, or their gossip, or their complaints, it doesn't matter to him what kind of mood they come up with, he's joyful. There are people who are very negative, no matter how many positive people walk around him, he is still the same. So in both cases, whether it's positive or negative, the inner state, if it's too strong, the chances of the impact of the other is less. But then if we have a weaker energy, the stronger person can have an impact on the others, basically. Like the Guru's presence, Acharya Mahapragyaji's aura, some people were able to see it, and they would say there's a huge pandal in India, the sermon halls were too big, and one of the yogi came and he said that Acharya Mahapragyaji's aura is expanding even outside that pandal. We say about Tirthankars, right? That we say Tirthankar, where Tirthankar resides, how long there is no grief. 1 yojin? Around, right? Probably. I mean, I might be wrong, but there is 1 yojin in north, in all directions, there is no grief. Why is that possible? The power, the energy, spiritual energy which he has, there is nothing mourning or grief around him to that degree. Everyone are like peaceful. So the impact, yes, it could be there. Again, it depends on how our internal state is. Yes.
Samaniji, are the Adhyavasaya and Leshya linked? So could you have a very good Adhyavasaya but the Leshya is bad, or a very bad Adhyavasaya but the Leshya is good? So
Okay, so yes, it is a link in the sense the Leshya is nothing but the vital energy added to our Adhyavasaya. Light energy, for example, when you have this, if the glass is, I'll give you another example now. There is a glass of water which has some blue color added to it. But since the glass was kept in darkness, you are not able to see it. But the moment you switch on the light, it is visible. So same case here, the Adhyavasaya is an interaction of soul and karmic energy. When you add the vital energy to it, the bioelectric energy to it, it becomes the Leshya. So Leshya...
You mentioned the interaction.
Hmm.
So what causes that interaction between the Adhyavasaya and the other? Is it just the karmic particles? I mean, the interaction, the actual cause of the interaction. How does it come about?
The karmic body and Tejas body are friends since infinite times. They are together since like endlessly, right? So they are tied up together. Now, since they are tied up together, the moment the president says something, the vice president has to follow it, something like that. So the analogy for the Tejas body is that if there is a light and you pass it through the prism, you get the different colors, right? So the light is the same thing, but when it passes through the prism, depending on the prism, depending on the angle which it receives, the colors are produced. So same case here, when we have the karmic energy, depending on the kind of karmic energy we have, the bioelectric energy body would actually regulate it more or less. It would have a stronger or a weaker influence. So the deciding factor is the karmic energy, and they are bonded together, and hence they kind of, it's not like a physical command given by one to the other. It is understood. Like for example, if there are certain times you don't say anything to your kids or your spouse, you just have an expression and it's understood that what is the other person trying to say. So for example, you stand up to do something and someone comes and helps you. You didn't tell the other person to help you, but it is understood that the other person is with you to help you in there. So same case here, since they are born together, they are tied up together, they work together in a way. And most importantly here is, we are going to go into the next question which Acharya is raising is positive and negative, Vidhayak Bhav and Nishedak Bhav. So how these two bhav are produced and what kind of interaction makes a change in our state of bhav basically. Yeah? Om.